3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Lots to get to on today's program. Always excited to talk to our good friend Aaron Fitt, national college baseball writer for D1Baseball.com. Before that, he plied his trade with the great folks at Baseball America. But Aaron's a great guy, loves the sport, knows it inside and out. We'll get his take on Mark Kingston's club, what's going on around the SEC, a couple of the other programs in state. There's some good ones, obviously. We'll do all that with Aaron coming up at the bottom of this hour, so about a half hour from now. About halfway through the program, 4:30, the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, will join us. The team will be leaving shortly for Auburn. Big matchup tomorrow night for both of these teams, a quad one opportunity regardless of who wins. And I'm not trying to, as I say sometimes, not rain on any parade. Carolina went to Knoxville and won. There's every reason to believe they can go to Auburn and win tomorrow night. But for the loser of this game, and someone will lose, that's how basketball works, it won't be a horrible loss either. I don't even know. I think Auburn's coming off of a bad loss in terms of how badly they were beaten. But Florida's coming on, and losing on the road, happens. How fired up is Auburn? How much can Carolina learn about itself in the loss at Alabama and the win at Tennessee, going into hostile environments, and try and perform well tomorrow night? Elijah will have a look a little bit later on at Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology, which I don't like. Jerry Palms is a little better, but feels a little too, I don't know if too optimistic is the word.
Yeah, maybe a little too hopeful.
I don't know. I mean, look, if it ended today and you want to look at just a national ranking, then Jerry's makes sense. I'm not sure. Look, Carolina, you're going to hear me be realistic, all right? Carolina's got 7 games left, and 4 of them are on the road, right?
Correct.
None of those road games is going to be easy starting tomorrow night. We saw what A&M just did to Tennessee in College Station, and the Gamecocks have already beaten Mississippi and Mississippi State here in Columbia. The point being, those two teams know why they lost. Carolina knows why they won. And the Ole Miss game turned into one hell of a game, considering that Carolina had a 14 point? 17-point lead. 17-point lead in the second half. And Ole Miss cut it to 3 at one point. And I guess that's where it finished at 3, 68-65?
Yep.
Yeah. You're sitting on 9 wins right now. I will continue to bang the drum of you need to set your goal of starting on Friday of the SEC tournament. And anything above that is fantastic. That's my personal feeling. If you agree or disagree, that's cool. But I think that's an attainable goal. And I do think 12-6 does that, which would mean 3-4. Now, does that mean you win your 3 home games because one of them's Tennessee and you lose your 4 road games? I'm not predicting any outcome at this point. I think Carolina can win every game it has left. And if I may be so bold, I think South Carolina can lose every game it has left. And I don't think either one of those will happen. So where in the middle do these things meet in terms of what Carolina's final regular season SEC mark looks like and where that tournament play begins? Because I think that goal of Friday is one that assures you of an NCAA tournament berth, allows you to rest up, and then maybe gives you that opportunity over the weekend to actually go in and say, you know what, let's go win this puppy. Because by that point in time, other than Alabama, who you don't get to play again, you might be able to say that you've either played with or beaten everybody that's going to have a real opportunity. You've beaten Tennessee. You've beaten Kentucky. What do you do with Auburn tomorrow? I don't know yet. You've beaten State. You've beaten Ole Miss, 2 teams that I think can win this tournament if things go their way. Buzz will have A&M playing well. And LSU, who was down big to Alabama the other day, did come back to take, albeit for one possession, I think they were down 11 in the second half at home to Alabama, took a lead, and then Alabama just said, yeah, now we're done.
They kept shooting threes. And
and they buried them in the end. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. It's really not even from my own perspective. I think for everybody, all of you listening that are Carolina fans, it's nice to be in this position, to have these games to follow and monitor so closely, and see what's happening out there, because it hadn't happened in a while. Let's put it that way. Hadn't happened in a while.
Let's take some perspective here and take a second to enjoy the fact that you can potentially stay tied at the top of the SEC with a win tomorrow night, and it's Valentine's Day.
Sure.
That when was the last time that has been said around here? To even be in contention for a regular season title.
Yeah, I don't even know that. I mean, I'd have to go back and look to see what the standings were in 17. But I'm honestly
I don't think.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
By Valentine's Day, that South Carolina team, I would say we could already secede.
Yeah.
Or give up, the conference regular season title, and you're playing for the tournament.
Yeah. You probably go back to 97 and 98, man.
It's a long time.
Where again, you had teams that were a 2 seed and a 3 seed nationally. That's how good those teams were under Eddie. And I remind everybody again, that's why there's a big new building over there, because you couldn't get a ticket
because of the success of that team.
Couldn't get a ticket, man.
So that's the really cool part about it. And there's a lot that can happen here in these 7 games, and all 4 road games are hard games. They're hard games, especially considering Mississippi State has already beaten Tennessee and Auburn in Starkville this year. That's a really tough place to play, unless you're Southern, who came in there early in the season and beat them somehow, which will now go down as one of the strangest results in college basketball this year. But Mississippi State's still a really good team. Ole Miss is playing for a tournament bid. They're not secure. Florida's not secure, and Florida's going to come here. Florida is
huge opportunity for Coach Golden's team to come here, man.
Lenardi has them square on the bubble, and if you've watched them play, they pass the eye test.
Yeah.
They've got dudes that are freakishly athletic. Riley Kugel is one of the most athletic players in the country. Zion Pullen is one of the craftiest scorers in the country. They have a lot of talent on that team. They've underachieved so far, but ever since SEC play started, they've picked it up a little bit, and now they've got themselves in a position. If they get a road quad 1 win, that's going to weigh really heavy, especially if South Carolina's still in the top, 15, maybe even 10 by that point, by the time they come here to Columbia. So,
well, they look good the other day beating Auburn.
Oh, they whacked them with a 9-iron for 40 minutes of basketball.
Yeah, Auburn really didn't have an answer. I kept waiting for Auburn to make that late run that Auburn can make. Couldn't make it the other day.
Florida's one of those teams, too. You look at them on paper, the metrics don't love them. They don't jump out at you in terms of there's not one thing outside of, offensive rebounding that they do that is just mind-numbing. They do a lot of things well enough. They don't do a lot of things, like I said, other than offensive rebounding, at an exceptional level. And you watch the game and you see the athleticism on tape, but it's one thing to watch it on tape. It's another thing to be on the floor with it and have to run with them. They're big, they're fast. They could beat anybody in the SEC as well. There's a few teams that are in this conference that I feel like can beat anybody on any given day, and Florida's the perfect example of that.
We'll have some more on this, and again, we'll talk to Derek in a bit. But before we talk to Derek, again, Elijah's got a couple of breakdowns of some of the national things that are going on around the basketball team. And tomorrow, again, they've had so many, I guess, pretty much all of January, and even last week. The midweek games for the Gamecock men were on Tuesday nights. That shifts, I think, to Wednesday for the remainder of the regular season. Just the way the scheduling works. But Carolina at Auburn tomorrow night. We'll have it for you beginning at 8 o'clock with an 8:30 tip time from Auburn. So, and again, big opportunity for both of these teams. A couple other things that are out there. The Combine invite list is out. Carolina has placed 5 on the list that'll be going to Indy: Spencer Rattler, Xavier Leggett, Trey Knox, Nick Gargiulo, and Marcellus Dial have all been invited. Certainly believe from my own point of view that Rattler and Leggett are getting drafted. I think Leggett's going to go, he'll be the first one taken. I don't know that he's a first-round pick, although it's not going to surprise me. I think he was, what did we say? Last time we looked, I think he was rated the 7th or 8th best wide receiver.
And I've seen some mocks that have him mid to late second.
Yeah.
But He's going to impress in the underwear.
I was going to say, and not only that, but at pro day, and there are, and sometimes some of these GMs will see a guy, and coaches will see a guy, and they'll look at the physical nature and just go, can we be the ones that pass up an opportunity to get a kid like this? That still, I think, for as much as he came on last year, considering, I guess, the way he kind of vaulted into things. This is the thing I use more than any other. Elijah knows where I'm going, but just a reminder, Xavier had more catches in the game against North Carolina up in Charlotte to open the season than he had the entire 2022 season. And we know what he did the rest of the way. He had a phenomenal year, but I think NFL guys are going to look at him and go, there's still so much room for growth, for development, to fine-tune, everything, the route running, the catching, just the knowledge of an offense and all those kind of things. And he's built. He's built.
He's got an NFL body.
He does
already.
Man.
He's got a lot. He's got that speed you can't teach.
And he's kind of always had that body. It's matching the performance to go with it, and that really started to shine through in a big way last year. But I think Spencer gets drafted. Dial is good. In terms of Gargiulo and Knox, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and be the guy to tell you. If you ask me today, do they get drafted? I'd say no. But guys like Nick Gargiulo especially can hang around the NFL. He's pretty good. He's versatile, smart. There's a lot to like there, and, they can always get guys a little bit bigger. It's always amazing to me, especially, was it Sean O'Hara that was, Eli's center was he and Eli were on Dan Patrick the other day, and so many of these linemen when they're not playing anymore, how much smaller they get.
Oh, they slim down.
I was like, you played center? I was like, that was you? Because I swear, I bet you he's lost 50 pounds.
And he probably did it with ease.
Yeah,
just from not having to try to keep up.
Right. Well, just lower the caloric intake to like the average, 2,000, 2,500 calories a day, and as opposed to like 6,000 or whatever those dudes eat. I don't know.
Your job's no longer to maintain being a massive human.
I will eat 5 pounds of pasta and 2 steaks and 8 protein shakes and whatever the heck else. But Nick, perhaps, and Trey Knox, you and I were talking earlier, guy who was changed to tight end in college, big body. I think there's something there. And, for a guy like that, and I'm very serious, is this new USXFL thing, whatever they're calling it, a place for him to go and, wait for it, develop.
Find a position that he can play. He's a little.
Do we still have that cut from Albert Breer from last week, by the way, that I was like dying to play and we just never had a chance to?
I can pull it up. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it in the Google Drive.
I felt very vindicated. That's probably too strong. But I felt when I heard somebody like him saying what he said about the opportunity for development.
I think you're feeling hopeful that your idea of what the NFL should do could come true.
Look.
Did you wish upon a star?
Of all the things that I would like to see happen, that probably ain't going to be the one that I'm wishing on a star for. It's close.
It's close. Yeah.
It's close.
I know it's up there, and we're starting to see it. The Albert Breer comment would give you a little hope.
A little bit.
Lead me to believe that you might have done something. Like
I'd have probably just wished for somebody to bring me a pizza.
Hey, if that happens too, then we'll know somebody did it.
It's nice.
It may or may not have been me.
803-404-6100. Love Chevy phone lines, Firehouse Subs text line. Again, Aaron Fitt talking baseball in just a few. Going to set something up that will probably continue throughout the afternoon, but Ross Dellinger with a terrific piece at Yahoo Sports speaking to Brett Yormark of the Big 12, Jim Phillips of the ACC, and others. Are we getting closer to expansion of the college football playoff? Yes. And maybe the men's basketball tournament? Some details as the postgame show continues. Love telling you about our great friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. You know, as a local, not-for-profit financial institution, they're here to help you and your family with all of your financial needs. But unlike big banks, they don't have stockholders. They're a credit union. They return those earnings back to members. Lower loan rates, fewer fees. That means more money in your pocket, whether you need a personal loan, a new credit card, a car loan, mortgage, home equity line, putting the kids through school. You name the need for money, Palmetto Citizens can truly help you save. And they are ready to work with you to customize terms and payments so that it fits your budget. How about that? Making it really easy. My wife and I are very happy and satisfied customers of Palmetto Citizens, have been for many years. We use the Millwood branch. They've got 13 others. That's 14 total. See, numbers, math. I can do that. Great people at all of them. You can apply now at palmettocitizens.org or, again, visit any of those 14 convenient Midlands locations. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. "20 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday. Lettuce will be here in 2 weeks.
Very soon. Yeah, I actually saw that. That's what?
It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday in later this month. I don't know. Maybe even the last day of the month.
You might be right. I was thinking it was early March somehow.
I don't know. It's soon.
Very soon.
Soon. Looking forward to it. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Again, we don't have a whole lot of time for this, so I want to set you up. This will be a shorter segment before we make way for our good friend Aaron Fitt to get a big-time college baseball preview. But Ross Dellinger, national college reporter, primarily college football, but he reports on other stuff too, working now for Yahoo, has spoken recently with pretty much all of the major commissioners, but this article today more specifically focused on conversations with Brett Yormark of the Big 12 and Jim Phillips of the ACC. And he got into their reaction, a couple weeks ago in hearing the news that the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference were forming an advisory group. We won't call it an alliance.
JAG.
The JAG. Group. That's right. The JAG.
Joint Alliance Group.
To advisory group.
Oh, yeah.
Don't call it.
Whoa. See, that's a Freudian slip.
Even you did it. He said they were, according to a couple of, they were surprised, that they weren't maybe included as the so-called now Power 4, or if you include basketball, there is now a Power 5 because the Big East. But at the same time, they're like, hey, we don't think they're going to leave us behind. And look, I don't either. Now, might they want to explore the possibility of leaving the NCAA and forming a new association? I still think that's very much on the table. I do. But at that point, I wouldn't personally, as much as I like SEC sports, I personally would not want just a league that was considered national that was just the SEC and the Big Ten.
I have a feeling it might be steamrolling that way.
But at that point,
an Animal Farm situation where we're going to break away, but then who's going to control them? It would be the ones say, hey, we make the most money.
Yeah, and at that point, I do. Then you're, North Carolina's coming along for the ride. Miami's coming along for the ride.
We'll kill the ACC.
Kansas is coming along for the ride, right?
And then Houston would come along. It's going to kill the Big 12. Eventually, we start that. It will create a domino effect where what happened to the Pac-12 will happen to the other conferences, and we will just have two.
With Texas and Texas A&M, who else is going to, who else would really move the meter in Texas nationally? I don't know if Houston does right now because of Kelvin. And their football, I don't know. We'll see.
Football's whatever.
There was a time when, again, 80s, early 90s, Houston, Akeem, Clyde, how they didn't win a national title, I don't know. Andre Ware won a Heisman. And there was a time, right? We saw RG3 win a Heisman at Baylor, but I'm not sure, and Scott Drews won a national title in hoops. Texas Tech beat the you-know-what out of Kansas last night, and Chris Beard had Texas Tech
a fingertip away.
Yeah, again, a fingertip and 3-minute replay away. But I'm not sure anybody would miss them on a grand scheme if they're not. But I think you bring them along. I just think if you're going to have a top league, it needs to be about 75 or 80 schools. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, I digress. One of the things they've gotten into is the possibility of 2026 college football playoff format being 16 schools. If you asked me today, do you think it will be 16? I'm going to lean 55-45, yes. Maybe 60-40.
That's lower than I would have expected.
I think it's going to happen. But I think there are reasons that we have seen with I don't mean this politically, but the conservative nature of how college football wants to run itself at times. That maybe, we'll get to 16, but we're going to do that at the first look-in opportunity, say, in 28. We're going to give 12 a couple of years and then redo the TV contract and give that a couple of years. And let's see if 12 generates money like we think it will, and does going to 16 really add a whole lot more, or just kind of get the same amount? And I don't. That's so maybe that's why I would not be 90-10. But I told you already, and I think I've said on the air before, I would have just gone to 16. It's a nice number for a tournament. If you want to reward people with buys, I get it. I still think the reward should be home field advantage.
Simpler format with 16
yeah,
and 12. Less having to explain.
And another reason I say things like the conservative nature of how college football runs itself, again, is this antiquated, archaic need, it seems, to play at bowl sites instead of on campus. It's like I get it, but I just no longer agree with it. So I don't want to say, I don't get it. I get it. But again, home field advantage. If you for all these people, Elijah, well, it's going to ruin the regular season. It won't. If you're playing for home field advantage, it still makes everything crucial. If you're sending everybody to a neutral site, yeah, I get it, and that's why people feel about basketball. Oh, the regular season doesn't matter. Well, that's not true at all. The regular season matters a lot. Again, 18% of participating schools go to the NCAA men's basketball tournament. 18%, not 80, 18. The regular season matters.
Ask teams like Florida.
Yeah.
And the Power Five.
Yeah.
Ole Miss. The regular season matters because you're trying to play your way in, because it's really hard to win your conference.
But everybody plays on a neutral floor. And so I get it. It doesn't have the same whatever. You're not playing for home field. You're just playing to get in. That's fine. I love the event. It's basically America's second favorite national event behind that game that they played the other night, the Taylor Swift Bowl.
The Super Bowl.
Bowl. Sorry. Super Bowl. Taylor Swift Bowl? Is it the Taylor Swift Super Bowl? Did she sponsor it? What was it again? I can't remember.
That's a bowl game. People don't like bowl games anyway. We already said we have too many, so
I got you.
It's just a bowl.
That's right.
Game.
Yeah, why do we have another one? It's not even a bowl. Anyway, so I think that's coming. So I want to plant that seed in y'all's head. Football expansion, and as I hit the break, basketball tournament expansion is also part of it. And we're going to pick that up after we talk to Aaron. But on the other side here, our very good friend Aaron Fitt, longtime national college baseball writer for D1, joins us. Gamecocks, SEC, and a whole lot more with Aaron. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Time to talk some college baseball on this Tuesday. The regular season begins this weekend. For the Gamecocks, it'll be the home openers against Miami of Ohio to discuss Mark Kingston's club, what's going on around the state, the SEC, and more. We welcome back onto the program our good friend Aaron Fitt. Been with us for many, many years. And, of course, Aaron doing what he's doing for a long time now with D1 Baseball with Kendall and Mark and the gang. Happy season week, sir. How are you?
I am doing great, my friend. How are you?
We're well, and expectations here always high. I don't have to tell you that. And Aaron doesn't live too far away, so he always keeps a very close eye on the Gamecocks. But got back to the Supers last year and hosted again last year. Give me, before I ask you about the team, give me maybe your take and the guys you work with on the perception and image of where Carolina baseball is, and is it re-emerging or about what you expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a program that feels like is definitely continuing to head in the right direction. I mean, obviously, it's been a little while now since they've been to Omaha, and that's kind of the standard that they set there during the glory years, right? And it's been a decade, more than a decade now since they've been back. And so that's kind of obviously where they need to get. But last year was a very successful season. Anytime you host a regional, first of all, I think that's a great accomplishment, and then when you win a regional, even better. I mean, and after that, I mean, the postseason is a crapshoot, but they were very close to getting back, and I like the trajectory of the program. I think they've done a really good job finding their footing in the transfer market, which is such a huge part of the college game now, and they've really done a great job there. They get their freshmen and they develop, and they've had some stars come through that way. Obviously, Petrie being the prime example, but I just feel like they've really found their footing, and I do feel like it's not going to be long before they do get back to the World Series.
Cole Messina and Ethan Petrie on a lot of All-America lists to start the year. They finished the season on a lot of those last season, too, which is probably more important, production relative to projection, Aaron. But with Ethan Petrie coming on the way he did, and now as a sophomore, this team, and we had Mark on the show yesterday, and he was quick to say, hey, listen, we got some other guys in that lineup. But it seems to me pretty obvious that this Gamecock baseball team is going to be built around the bat of Ethan Petrie.
Yeah, Petrie and Messina, I mean, you're talking about two first-team preseason All-Americans, I mean, the guys who are number one at their respective positions in the whole country as far as we're concerned. And so that's a pretty good place to start your lineup when you got two guys who are the very best of their spots. I mean, we had Petrie as the number one outfielder in the country in our preseason player rankings. So he's obviously special. And, I continue to compare him to Chris Bryant. I don't know if that's fair or not, but that's who he reminds me of, just that athletic right-handed power hitter who runs better than you think and throws, and it's just really tooled up, controls the zone pretty well for a power hitter. I mean, I think there's one area where he could continue to improve, and I think he will now as a sophomore because he's going to be pitched pretty carefully, and so he's got to make sure he stays within himself, doesn't chase like so many of the great college stars over the years have been in that position, whether it's Chris Bryant, whether it's Anthony Rendon, Buster Posey, all these guys you look up, and as sophomores and juniors, they've got a ton of walks because everyone's pitching them so carefully, but they've managed to stay within themselves and not chase too much. And so that's kind of the key, I think, for a guy who establishes himself as a superstar so early is can you stay patient? Can you not get jumpy when you're getting pitched around a little bit? And I think it's going to be hard to pitch around him because they have so much firepower in this lineup. I mean, I still think this should be an elite offensive club.
And that's kind of where I was going to go next, and I don't want to make a comparison in terms of a player, but I look at Matt Olson with the Braves relative to Matt Olson with the Athletics when, he could pitch around him in Oakland, and he would chase a lot of stuff, too. In Atlanta, with the lineup the way it is, and again, I'm not trying to go apples to apples, but you just made the point, it's about surrounding him. How do you like what Carolina has coming back around him? Messina, obviously, we've already mentioned, but in terms of a 1 through 9, what you see with the returning guys plus what Mark has added through the portal, and as we know, what kind of hitting coach Monty Lee can be to help these guys develop further.
Yeah, Kingston talked a lot about last year about how he loved the way that the Texas A&M team 2 years ago was built, that Omaha club for Jim Schlossnagle, where they just drive you crazy. Like their games, A&M that year, the games were tough to watch because they were all 4.5 hours long because they're fouling off 100 pitches, and they just would not quit. And that tenacity, combined with the power that they had, I think was a formula that Kingston said, hey, this is a winning formula. And he wanted to implement that style of play last year, and they were very very successful at it. And, I think they're going to do the same thing this year. I mean, they did it in the fall. I mean, certainly when I was in there, it was just one mature at-bat after another. And Kingston said that was kind of the story of their fall, was just so many tough outs and guys that just would not quit. And so I think that's going to continue to be the case. And it helps when you've got older players to build around. I mean, we talked about a couple of them, but Gavin Castles, of course, and Parker Nolan, the fifth-year guy from Vanderbilt. You plug him in there. Talmadge Lee Croy, is a proven SEC caliber hitter who's just a tough out, just really digs in there, and I think an underrated player, a fun player. You plug in some nice pieces in the portal. I know they were very excited about Blake Jackson in the fall. I have not heard much about how his spring preseason has gone, but that's a transfer from Charlotte that they thought could be like a table setter, an everyday center fielder. Maybe Kennedy Jones, if he can make the adjustment to SEC pitching from UNC Greensboro. He's certainly a physical and athletic guy that can hurt you. There's a lot of nice pieces here. I think Will Tippett may be the biggest key of all. The guys that they expect to step in at shortstop. I thought he looked great there defensively in the fall. The bat needs to take a step forward, and it looked like it was doing that in fall ball, and we'll see how that translates to the spring.
One more on the Gamecocks for you. We're talking to Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball. Do you want to get your take on what's going on around the conference and the state of South Carolina, too? Matt Williams comes in as pitching coach. There's a lot of arms to work with. Mark yesterday, unfortunately, Aaron, I tried, but he was not ready to tell us his weekend rotation yet. I think that's coming, but there are a lot of choices. We know injuries last year really hurt this pitching staff more than anything else, but if healthy, how do you rate them?
Yeah, I like the depth on the mound. I mean, that's kind of the standout thing, I think, is 12, 14, 15, 16 guys that can throw 93 or better. I mean, they have arm strength collectively, and that certainly stands out. Kind of the concern, I think, on paper heading into this thing is, do they have a true frontline guy? It seems like they got a lot of number 2, number 3 starter profile type guys. I think Eli Jones is a huge key, because that's the one guy that I think, I could see him taking that next step and being a solid, SEC Friday night guy. He's not going to be Paul Skeens, but he can go out there and compete. He's got experience. He's got plenty of stuff. I mean, he'll show you, 94, 95 with sink, and can spin the slider pretty well. So I think he's got enough ability there that he can maybe be that guy, that anchor that they can lean on. And then, we'll see if Matthew Becker's healthy or not. I know he had, it sounded like there's some kind of injury thing with him last week, I think. That's certainly a key piece, a left-hander that has experience, can really spin the breaking ball. And Roman Kimball, I liked him a lot 2 years ago. He was at Notre Dame, and he looked great in the summer for me in the Cape Cod League and even in fall ball before he got hurt. But coming back from TJ, that's a guy that they have high hopes for, I know. That is frontline stuff. It's just a matter of how long does it take a guy to get all the way back from Tommy John. Sometimes that can be a process that takes longer for some guys than others. Mm-hmm. But at his best, it's mid-90s, with really elite characteristics in that fastball. It's got that kind of that low release height that makes it kind of jump through the zone. And so I think that's the guy that has a chance to be pretty good. So obviously you got Chris Veach in the bullpen and lots of pieces around him. I love the depth of the bullpen.
Got about a minute and a half here, Aaron. So I'll go ahead and ask you about some of the other teams in the state. Obviously, talent-rich baseball state, but how do you project Clemson and Coastal Carolina, I guess, when it comes to the national stage? How legit are these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, they're both real contenders. Both hosted regionals last year, and we've got them ranked such that we probably expect them to be right in that mix again this year. In Clemson, I think we have number 10 in the preseason. Just a nice veteran club, pretty balanced, pretty athletic. It's not like blow you away pitching, but they've got enough guys there with experience that you really like. So Coastal Carolina, I just think that the firepower in the lineup is terrifying. Kind of like South Carolina. I think they're going to be an elite offensive club, multiple All-American caliber guys there with Caden Bodine and Derek Bender leading the way. And, we'll see how they come together on the mound, but they did a good job with the JUCO guys that they brought in. I think they're probably, certainly one of the teams to beat in the Sun Belt, which is a very good league. So, yeah, I think you've got 3 real regional host type teams in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, and Chad Holbrook's got a pretty good squad down at Charleston, doesn't he?
Yeah. He does, yeah. I just wrote them up the other day. I think it's a team that could surprise some people. It's a good league, the CAA this year. They're probably fourth in the preseason pecking order, but I like their club. I think they could be kind of that team lying in the weeds.
Real quick before we let you go, I do this to you every season and have for, 10 or 15 years, however long I've known you. Give me Aaron Fitt's sleeper team across the country, somebody we're not thinking of that can make some noise.
Really like Troy's club, a team I hated leaving out of the preseason top 25. Speaking of the Sun Belt, I think they're very interesting. I'll give you a deep sleeper, Kansas. Nobody never thinks about Kansas in baseball, but saw them in the fall. Thought they did a great job in the transfer market. Feels like that team, maybe it's a sleeper team down in the Big 12, but keep an eye on them.
Yeah, good stuff as always, man. Great to have the season back. I know we'll check in with you again real soon. Always appreciate it. Have fun this weekend.
All right, guys. Thank you.
You bet. Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball. He's very simply Aaron Fitt, 2 T's, to follow along on Twitter if you don't already, and D1Baseball.com. Recap some of what he had to say, continue our discussion on other things going on around college athletics, including tournament expansions. I do think it's coming. Lots to do on the Tuesday postgame show. 11 in front of 4 on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. The postgame show continues. Jay and Elijah with you. And thanks again, as always, to our buddy Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball. Just terrific at what he does. One thing I didn't have a chance to ask him today, and I will at some point here, maybe even off air and just get it to you. But with all of the talk of transfer portal and NIL and autonomy and everything else, are we any closer at the national level to getting rid of the 11.7 rule with college baseball, which, again, is a reminder, a college baseball program, a D1 college baseball program, has 11.7 scholarships to spread amongst the entire roster, and everybody has to get something. So it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Baseball, I feel like, is like one of the sports in the NCAA that really has gotten jobbed.
And for
whether it be assistant coaches,
nobody can tell you why anymore. It's been so long now that it feels like no one that's in charge can tell you why. I think one of the things, and again, this goes, and I'm sorry, but maybe, sorry, not sorry. I think, it used to be 13. If you're ever like, how'd you get 11.7? It used to be 13. And some geniuses on some committee at some point, I don't know, a couple decades ago, we're just going to cut 10%. So that's how it came up with 11.7. We're going to cut 10%. I can't even remember now. Some of the reasoning is just silly. It's like, well, not everybody could afford that. And that's what we always come back to, right? Again, yes, you can provide bagels, but no cream cheese. Why? Because some schools can't afford that. Okay. But what about the ones that can? Yeah, well, not anymore. We're not going to let them, even if they can, even if they want to. I think the bulk of the Southeastern Conference, if not all of it, would provide full scholarships for baseball and softball. But they can't. And I don't know what the rules are for softball. They get a few more because you got to have the balance of Title IX with football and all that kind of thing, which is perfectly fine. I mean again, let me go back to something real quick. Because I think people need to hear this, and I'm going to remind you all of this a lot as we move forward the next few months when it comes to the business of college athletics and why things have to change. Again, using the year of when Carolina and Arkansas joined the SEC as a benchmark, that season, the schools of the Southeastern Conference shared a collective like 25-ish 28 million, something like that. They shared it. So they split that. In today's money, using inflation, in today's money, those 12 schools would have shared 60 million, 5 million each. And this year, as you guys just saw, 14 schools. So adding 2, 14 schools each made more than 10 times that amount. Now, again, I just gave you all the inflation number. So take that, again, inflation is about a little over 100% change from then to now, which means we're looking at more than 1,000% in distribution money. And I'm not saying that's horrible. What are we doing? But you got the point is some of these schools have the money to spend, and they'd like to spend it on more scholarship opportunities and on more cost of attendance opportunities and expenses. But since there are schools that can't, they're not allowed. And yet the autonomy that was granted, somebody needs to tell me why the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 can't provide full scholarships in baseball if they want to. If you find a way to balance it, again, I'm totally 100% here for what Title IX provides, especially as the father of 4 daughters and a wife who was also an athlete. I want them to have amazing opportunities, and I think they get them, and I think that anything that needs to be balanced would be balanced. But I can assure you, Ray Tanner, Chad Holbrook, Mark Kingston, all would love to have more scholarship money. They don't let them. It's just dumb. But, I don't mean to go down that track too much, but I didn't get to ask Aaron that. Other than that, he likes what Carolina is. We didn't get into a whole big thing on the SEC. Again, Carolina's picked about midway in the SEC. Vandy, Arkansas, I think, might be the best team in the league this year. LSU is always strong. Florida's always strong. Carolina's strong. If the pitching can come around and stay healthy, this is going to be a very good baseball team. So, that's what concerns me the most. It's just like Aaron said, you lose some big arms, and you had some guys that were hurt. Some guys you're not going to get back this season. But you're going to hit. You're going to hit.
That's the exciting part about this non-conference slate, too. It doesn't look too daunting, but there is a lot of opportunity to at least be able to see what your weekend rotation is going to look like and at least see what the bullpen and everything else is going to shape up to be. You have some margin for error here in this first, month and a half of the season. So it's something to look for in these early games.
Could the NCAA men's basketball tournament be expanding from 64/8? Could be. We're going to give you some info on why, plus look at more of the Gamecocks in the next hour. Be right back. 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the postgame show. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you. We are in the Herndon Chevy studios, he tried to say, in downtown Columbia.
Words.
That's right. Thank you. So excited about, I have some breaking news that I want to get to that I'm just getting ahead of myself. But wherever you might be across greater Columbia, the Midlands, the PD, the Grand Strand, or again, hopefully one day the International Space Station or anywhere in between. Appreciate you. Thanks again to Aaron Fitt for joining us. We'll revisit some of what Aaron had to say. For those of you Gamecock baseball fans who missed it, I'll have Elijah carve out a portion of what Aaron said in previewing the Gamecock baseball program.
A nice replay.
Speaking of which, our own Josh Yellman, who I hope is listening right now, Josh is the best silent yeller in the history of radio sales. Josh is also the person here in the building that we have to treat with the most respect because he controls all of our Gamecock athletic tickets.
He's the master gatekeeper.
But he has reminded Elijah and me to give you a pair of tickets to Saturday afternoon's game. So we will be doing that soon. And that's the baseball game.
Yes, because if we don't, my pinky might be ending up in my parents' in a box, my parents' mailbox. So
we don't need that.
With a ransom note.
We don't need that.
Nope. So for the sake of my phalanges, we'll be giving out tickets.
There you go. Soon. Very soon. I promise. And if I don't, again, I'll hear about it too.
And I'll be I'll be one pinky less.
I don't need that. ESPN and the college football playoff this afternoon have announced an agreement on a 6-year extension that will make ESPN the home of the 12-team tournament through 2032. The total amount, $7.8 billion. The completion, from what Andrew Marchand, who, by the way, just joined the athletic staff, and I'm very happy about that. Andrew is probably the best sports broadcasting reporter in the business, just joining the athletic staff. Nicole Auerbach, Stuart Mandel, and Chris Vanini all working on this together with different sources around the country. They say that the full contract completion is contingent on finalizing the details of this. So we, Elijah and I, were just borrowing from a story from Ross Dellinger in the opening hour with some of the conference commissioners talking about going to 16. I think Mike Oresco of the AAC was one of them. But, hey, it really doesn't, and I think he was right. I'm paraphrasing now. He said it doesn't fundamentally alter the tournament the way going from 4 to 12 is fundamentally altering things. Let me read verbatim. The ESPN deal will not be ratified until the commissioners and presidents vote on the structure and financials of the expanded CFP. ESPN Senior Vice President Josh Krulowitz and CFP Executive Director Bill Hancock both declined to comment. This is going to more than double what college football programs are receiving. Right now, the annual payout is $608 million. And again, I can do a little bit of math. When it's big numbers and small terms, I can quickly divide. This is going to be $1.3 billion per year. Again, 608 now. So again, you're going to more than double what you get. Woo! Now that's the mouse coming to college football saying, I've been good to you. I know y'all want to take this thing to market. Give us, give me, Mickey says, give me a number. Well, Mickey, you might have to double it. What if I go you one better and throw in another $100 million? Done. And at that point, Fox, which I don't know that they have any kind of animal mascot other than a fox.
Fox, I was going to say.
But I think they have that robot guy. They never have a fox. They should have a fox.
Cletus, the robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to have one of those in the old studio. It broke.
A cletus?
It wasn't big, but it was like maybe I'm showing Elijah.
It's not to scale.
Yeah, maybe like a little over a foot tall. It was kind of cool. I forget why we got that thing, but it was kind of cool.
A mini cletus.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. ESPN, Disney had right of first refusal. What's a number that's just going to scare? Because I really did think that Fox and CBS and NBC would all want in with a portion of this, just like the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, next year, for what it's worth, Amazon is going to get a playoff game because they have money.
Didn't they have a playoff game last year? No, just kidding. That was still NBC. I was thinking
Peacock had the streaming exclusive Chiefs game. I'm not paying $6 to watch a football game. All right. Well, then don't. Just cancel. They won't charge you. So now you're going to have 2 streaming playoff games next year. So hopefully you got your Prime membership for at least one of them if you don't want to subscribe to Peacock, which you should. Again, if nothing else, every Saturday Night Live ever is on Peacock. Free plug for Peacock. But anyway, now this in all seriousness. Right of first refusal. Hey, double it and then some, and then that'll be good. Okay. That's how much it means to them. To Disney, I'm talking. And I'm not going to say ESPN. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In this case, I'm going to say this is a Bob Iger-led decision. This is a Disney decision. You don't go around throwing a billion plus at something and let the people in Bristol make the sole decision. This goes to a higher level. This is how much live sports are valued. The thing is now, seriously, man, within this time frame, are they going to go to 16, or does this now settle it? I don't know, because we were just talking about that as a distinct possibility.
I still think it'll end up going to 16. You know why? Because this first one's going to be such a hit. I can already tell you it's going to be such a hit. You're going to get a couple of classic games, a couple of really good matchups, and no matter what the final result is, I think the amount of viewership that it's going to draw the first one is going to end up resulting in talks of expanding this, because 16 is a natural expansion from 12.
Agreed.
It's a very seamless fit. And like we previously said, it's not fundamentally changing the playoff the way going to 12 was. Going from 4 to 12 was pretty fundamentally changing. And if we have anything, and this first one, kind of like the first 14 playoff was, where Ohio State upsets Alabama and basically validated the need for a playoff in college football. Like we might see, a team that was 7th end up messing around and playing in the title game, something like that. Then I think we're going to see this thing go to 16 really, really fast.
Well, again, I would have gone ahead and done it. I'm not going to say that I dislike 12, and I do wholeheartedly disagree with those who have said, you don't need to do this anyway because most of the games are blowouts. That's not the point. And when you can't understand that, I can't make you I'm not here to change minds, but I am here sometimes to say why. And the why is I just gave you the why. They just more than doubled the amount of money they're currently making. They just more than doubled it.
Which is already a lot of money.
Yeah.
A cartoonish amount of money.
So
not enough for the players. Though.
Right. Well,
you can't. They can't. This
time
there
will
anymore.
Yeah, this time there will be.
Broke
and I think that honestly,
earlier, but now you really can't.
Right. That's fair. No, you're right. But like I just said, payouts to the SEC alone are up 1,000% relative to inflation's growth at 100%. So there's money for this. And I do believe them when they say they want to share some of it. Now, they don't want to share much of it.
They want to share as little as possible.
But at the same time, I think, I have a hard time. Like, who's getting rich? Coaches are getting rich.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. Schools aren't getting rich. They're spending the money. But sometimes they're spending it on things that are, in some people's opinions, almost too opulent because they have to spend the money. And as we've said before, a lot of players are like, would you rather have all of these and those trappings and whatever in your facility, or would you rather have the cash? would you rather have the money? And the vast majority of them would rather have the money. And I think schools are realizing that. So players and the schools, as we have now seen, we heard Ray Tanner on this program just last week. Yes, we want to control NIL so we can make sure that our kids are getting what they want to get. So I believe them. You know, I as I said, you know, it's not like schools are out there buying like 8 Lear jets, man. Right? And riding around, you know, like Mr. Burns in The Simpsons, you know, with ivory-handled back scratchers. I really wanted that ivory-handled back scratcher. It's a great episode. He's just had so much money to waste. Anyway, that's not what they're doing. I don't think.
They're not there. They're not there yet.
I don't know that anybody.
I think we're a lot closer to that than a lot of people realize.
Maybe. I mean, John Calipari seems like the type to have a ivory-handled back scratcher.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. With the money he saved, I guess, from some recruiting classes, yeah, he probably got to buy one.
I'm just kidding, Coach Cal.
Today's the 30th anniversary of John Channing threatening to.
And he wasn't kidding.
Oh, yeah. There was no kidding about it. He approached the podium.
Yeah.
He was talking about it, and he was going to be about it moments after. I believe him. He'd have done it.
So, you know, again, are we going to get to a 16-school CFP? I don't know how much this news alters that. But if you are just tuning in during the middle of the conversation, today, Disney and the CFP have announced a 6-year extension that will start once the new format begins. That will more than double the annual payout to the members of the CFP, going from $608 million per year to better than $1.3 billion per year. A 6-year, $7.8 billion extension, with ESPN being the exclusive home. And there again, that helps ESPN with its carriage partners, cable, YouTube people. I saw a guy saying, why don't you put these things on ABC? You know, what a bunch of dolts. And it's like, no, here's why. Because this is how they get $12 a month for every subscriber to cable television. Probably be more than that now. What do they get for YouTube TV or Sling or whatever else? I don't know. Probably around the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why. Exclusivity. But it's a big deal. All right.
Thanks, Mickey.
803-404-6100. Would you like to go see the Gamecock men's baseball team play their second game of the season this weekend against Miami of Ohio? If the answer is yes, then by all means, use that phone number, 803-404-6100. Be caller number 5. And Elijah and the great Josh Yellman are going to hook you up with a pair of tickets. Come back on the other side. Speaking of expansion, is the basketball tournament headed to 96? We'll discuss as the postgame show continues. 18 minutes after 4 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, coming up in about 10 or 12 minutes. Always fun to talk with Derek. He and the team will be headed out to Auburn shortly tomorrow night. Gamecocks at the Tigers in a big one in SEC play. Number 11 Gamecocks, number 13 Auburn. Quad one opportunity for both. Big opportunity for Carolina on the road.
Technically, this would not be a quad one win for Auburn because South Carolina is 45.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was thinking that they were higher. That's right, they're not.
But you know what South Carolina does have in the last 7 games? 5 quad one opportunities.
Yeah.
It can be 6 if Florida creeps up 3 spots in the net in the top 30.
Yeah.
And they're awfully close. So potentially 6 of the last 7 games. We already pretty much guaranteed 5 of the last 7 are quad one games. And to give you an idea of how much that is compared to what you've played this season, South Carolina has only played, as of now, 5 quad one games all year.
Right.
3 and 2 in those games.
Yeah, the net ranking, and you know, again, the strength of schedule number is still, it's getting better because of conference play. But I remember you and I about, 3 weeks ago, because Carolina had crept into the top 20 of the RPI, just as one metric to use.
The old RPI.
And Carolina, of the top 20 in the RPI, I think they were 19th in the RPI. The strength of schedule number was like 140-something. And the next lowest, if you will, was Ole Miss's, and it was like 88. It was like 60 spots. You know, it was a huge difference. And that's just the reality. I mean, that's not a judgment. It is what it is in terms of who you've played, you know. And again, you'd like DePaul to have a pulse since they're in a power conference.
You know what the record is now?
None for whatever.
3 for 20. Yeah.
Do they have a conference
Almost the
win?
inverse. Oh, no.
Yeah, I think so.
They have not been very close at getting those either.
That's sad.
It's depressing what DePaul's become in basketball.
Yeah.
It's depressing what Georgetown's become in that conference.
Yeah.
And then you take into account that DePaul is not just that bad, but that's Georgetown's punching bag in that conference is DePaul.
It is, man, because my goodness, in the 80s, and I know it was a long time ago.
The uniforms were a lot better then, too.
But in the
DePaul
80s, yeah, DePaul's, man, everything about DePaul. Again, Ty Corbin, you know.
Yeah, local.
Same high school as Colin Murray Boyle. Him and X. Man.
Now we just have to call them Paul. They're not DePaul. Now you're just any Paul. You're Paul. Congrats, Blue Demons. DePaul Blue Demons.
That being said, the Gamecocks are projected 5th by Joe Lenardi, a 5 seed rather. You say Spokane?
Yeah, playing their first round games in Spokane, 5 seed against Yale, the projected Ivy League champ, the current number 1 seed holder.
I don't like 5-12 games.
And I don't like him against that Yale team.
Yeah, Yale.
Yale can play.
Those Ivies, man, they're good. And then Jerry Palm has them as a 3.
Yep, as a 3 playing in Brooklyn against Morehead State. So we would call that the Talon Cooper Bowl. Because Talon Cooper's only career NCAA tournament game came with Morehead State.
Yeah.
That was a loaded OVC that year. That was a really good team. He's actually going to be playing his old pick and roll partner, Janai Broom, when they play at Auburn this week.
I guess if nothing else, I'd rather see him play in the East Coast and maybe give a few more fans an opportunity. There's a pretty good New York City Gamecock Club contingent.
So that would be really cool.
And there's a couple of direct flights a day to LaGuardia from here. So that helps. Or if you just want to go to Charlotte and get one of like the 2 per hour that go to New York City.
Be a little harder to get to Spokane, I would assume.
Yeah, I think you have to like get off like in Boise and take a horse and buggy over to Spokane or something. I'm not sure.
Something I heard John Stockton gives rides only for a certain price.
I'm sure Spokane has an airport. At least I think I'm sure.
I'm not. That's why I didn't say flying into Spokane. I can't guarantee.
It'd be nice if you could say, well, I'll go to Spokane and then hang in Seattle. Then you look at the size of the state of Washington and you realize where it is. And you're like, oh, I guess I'm not going to Seattle.
You're just kidding. Not making that commute for the days.
It's not even, it's not a day's, it's not like a 2-hour junket across the state.
I've always wanted to go to Spokane, though. I've actually heard it's a fun town.
It looks real pretty out that way.
Gorgeous looking.
Yeah, I'm here for things like that. We were telling you before. Again, there's things that may be altering the story today with the news of ESPN / Disney and the CFP signing an extension. But what about expansion as well of the NCAA basketball tournament? Remember this, kids. College football is really run by college football. The NCAA does not administer college football. It is the arbiter of the rules and the enforcer of said rules. Again, it's basically judge, jury, executioner, but it doesn't run things. And it does run every other tournament, right? And it makes a lot of money from the basketball tournament, like a lot of money. It distributes about $700 million per year under the current deal to member schools, and you do that with participation, and then if you do well in the tournament, you get a little bit more, and you and your conference figure out how to distribute that. I'm not going to get into all those nuts and bolts. The Big Six, if you will, the Power Six, because I include the Big East, we all do, won or earned more than 70% of the money that was distributed last year. So there are some smaller conference commissioners that would like a better shot. I've said before, and I told you this, Elijah, so that you'll know where I'm coming from, because you and I have not been working together that long. I've not ever really advocated for an expansion to 96 schools. What I have said is the NCAA has for now, I don't know, it's been a while, owned the NIT. Why did they buy the NIT? And I ask that somewhat rhetorically. No, the NIT before that was who wants to make a bid to host if you didn't get into the NCAAs. And a bunch of people raised their hand, and somebody sat in a room in New York City and decided, and then they played games. Now that the NCAA owns it, for instance, if you are a one-bid league, a small conference, and you win your regular season, and you are anticipating winning your conference tournament, but you don't, you then get an automatic bid into the NIT because you're not getting into the NCAA tournament. Okay, then let's just get both in. If you are both, I don't know, let's just say something easy like Duke. Duke wins the regular season in the ACC a lot, and they win a lot of ACC tournaments. So in a year when they do both, all right, well, that opens up a slot. Not necessarily for an ACC school, just opens up an at-large. But if Duke wins a regular season and North Carolina wins the tournament, well, then, okay, it doesn't. But why do they have it? And you made a good point, and I'm not, you don't want a bunch of just 12-seed Power Fives filling these slots. And that's one of the things that these conference commissioners have been talking about. They don't want that either. I don't want that either. But I don't know where the rub is.
I think Brett Yormark wants
Well, he does. But his league, he's saying, man, we're good. And you know what? He's right.
Well, because he wants, 13-9 UCF in there. Because really, the line of demarcation is that the only team that's, good that might get eliminated in that conference is Kansas State. But he wants West Virginia to be in, even if they're not going to be good enough to be in. I genuinely think there's a lot of wanting lesser teams in it. He did say in that Ross Dellinger story, he said, just like football, we want to get the best teams in the country to play in the tournament. I don't think, play in the postseason. I don't think we necessarily have that. And buddy, that's disingenuous, because if you really think a 10 or 11 loss team is entitled to play for a championship, if they didn't win the conference, then I don't know how you can say we're not getting a true champion if 11 or 12 lost Kansas State's not in it. That, it's disingenuous because they want more money. You already laid out that 70% of the revenue from this big old tournament goes to those conferences, because those are the conferences that usually are the ones that have the teams in the Elite Eight and the Final Four.
Right. And they're the ones that put eyeballs on screens, and people know that. I mean, it's fun in the first round to see Ryder take on Kansas, and see
Furman beat Virginia.
Yeah, that was cool, or whatever.
Mountain West got manna from the heavens when San Diego State went to the national title game. And this is the one
FAU in the Final Four.
Yeah. Like that. And their last year in the Conference USA got them a Final Four team. And that earns those conferences and those leagues a lot of money. And that's the best part about, the sport. But realistically speaking, I really think with your Mark saying that, I think he just wants more of his teams in, because we're going to be, the debate on the at-larges at 96 is going to get really silly.
I mean, just, I don't know. And we need to hit the break and talk to Derek. Look at the last, 5 or 6 years of the NIT and basically say, okay, is this about what we want into this thing? And see if that works or not. I don't know. It'd be 26% of schools that participate if you went to 96. It's currently 18. I mean, again, fundamental alteration, not necessarily, but again, there's only one reason to do it.
It's a ploy to get Indiana in.
And we know why. And listen, I think it's coming because of that one reason. It will make them more money. Derek Scott on the Gamecock men's team getting ready to travel to Auburn. What's the situation look like this week? We'll talk to Derek as the postgame show continues.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to report to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways here this Tuesday afternoon. going to start off in Richland County. An accident reported on Blythewood Road at Wilson Boulevard is causing some mild delay on that part of town. Another one here in the county. An object on the roadway is causing some traffic backup over on I-20 westbound near the Broad River Road exit, which is exit 65. And then here in town as well, I-126 westbound over at Hugh G. Street. An object is also on the roadway there that's causing some traffic backup, and another obstruction on the roadway, this time over near Blythewood, I-77 northbound, right before the Blythewood Road exit 27.
Time to talk a little Carolina hoops. Welcome back into the broadcast. Jay and Elijah with you. 25 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. The voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, joining us now. Gamecocks getting ready to take off for Auburn. They'll be over on the Plains tomorrow night for a big matchup of top 15 ball clubs. And it's a lot of fun to say that, Mr. Scott. Number 11 Gamecocks at number 13 Auburn. You've seen a top 5 team already. How big is this test, especially now knowing what Carolina is accomplishing?
Oh, it's huge. And good to talk with you, Jay. It is huge because Auburn is, one of the squads that they're very good, but they're also a team that gets such a huge advantage out of their home arena. And it has now gotten to the point, in talking to some folks, and this may sound crazy to some, but I've talked to some folks now who have worked in the ACC and the SEC, and they believe it's a harder place to play than Cameron Indoor Stadium. They basically, their point is, if Duke's not playing UNC, that the crazies aren't that crazy anymore. And the nuts over in Auburn are always nuts, and they have really turned that place into such a hard place to play. And if you look at their recent history against top 10 teams, that's where it really gets your attention. It's one thing to have a great gaudy home record. That's not all that uncommon. But to see how good and downright gaudy their record is at home against top 10 squads, that's when it'll really get your attention. It's something. And Bruce Pearl's got his guys again this year playing great basketball, but especially playing great basketball in their home gym.
Yeah, speaking of that, Derek, the last time Auburn played in their home gym, not only they beat Alabama, they shot 50 free throws in that win against Alabama. I did not say 15, I said 50. So what's going to be the hard part for South Carolina to keep them off the line and be able to try to combat, their athleticism? Because not only is this team really big, they play a lot of dudes, and all those dudes are really athletic.
Yeah, they are. And the fouling isn't as much the concern to me as just trying to handle their bigs. When you talk about Janai Broom and Jalen Williams, those two side by side, and you're right, they've got great depth, but those two in particular play so well off of each other. And that really is the biggest concern to me. And if you look at last year, when the Gamecocks really were dismantled by Auburn, when they were in Columbia, that was really a two-man wrecking crew. It was those two guys that led the charge. And again, Auburn's three-point shooting has not been elite by a long shot this year. They're not terrible. They're not, where Mississippi State was last year or where Texas A&M has largely been this year. But that's not the strength of this team. It is transition. It is great defense. And at the offensive end, it is relying heavily on Janai Broom, and then a heavy dose of Williams tossed in there as well. And that's where the concern comes from me, because you will see them play those two guys out of the high and low post and really chew some people up. Janai Broom, all the talk about Dalton Connect this year certainly deserved, but Janai Broom has to be in the conversation for SEC Player of the Year. He has to be in that conversation. His numbers are elite.
Let's talk about how you defend it then, Derek. What's that look like from your perspective in terms of Carolina's personnel? Who does Lamont try to assign to those guys?
Well, I mean, with Broom, he's so big. I think you've got to put, BJ on him and Josh on him. And then I say that because I really feel like as athletic as Williams is, you can't ask either of those two guys to chase him because he can pull you out on the perimeter more. And Broom's trying to create a little more of a three-point option for himself. I still don't think you want to be as focused on that by a long shot. But I say that all to say that, you've got to try and leave Colin Murray-Boyles on Williams. So really it's going to be, I think, the obligation of BJ and Josh to try and handle Broom. And that'll be very, very challenging. As I said, I don't know that there's anybody in this league in the post who comes close to playing as effectively as he does.
I'm glad you mentioned Colin Murray-Boyles, at least getting the assignment of Jalen Williams, because defensively, I know the 31 points is what sticks out on the box score. That and the amount of times he was about to rip the rim off of the backboard in the win over Vanderbilt. But defensively, I think is really where he's maybe grown the most. Maybe that and his ability to score efficiently. But defensively, I think that's where they're really going to need him here in this game. And whether it's a chase down block in transition or stuffing somebody at the rim, I have a feeling this could be a really big Colin Murray-Boyles defensive game where you need him on that end, and maybe more so than any other game you've needed him on that end this season.
Well, I really feel like he can impact every game in so many different ways. It's hard to guess really where it's going to pop up. I think this game more than any, the one thing I kind of have as a red flag or a concern is, again, still a freshman, and in this atmosphere, how does he handle it? Because you can see somebody who's not used to playing on the road in a place like that, where it can get in your head a little bit. It can become a distraction. You can get you so wound up that you end up doing some things you shouldn't do, getting early foul trouble as a result of that. That sort of stuff always worries me when you're going into a place like that. Gamecocks didn't play there last year either, so basically there's nobody on this roster you can point to say they played at this arena, and so that's going to be real interesting. I mean, Coleman Coliseum was a really tough place to play. Gamecocks were outstanding in the first half, dealt with it all, kept that crowd quiet. When Alabama started making a ton of shots, it unraveled. So, you got to look at it and say, okay, can we do better this time? Tennessee always has the potential to be that kind of tough place, but South Carolina never wavered, and Tennessee cooperated by missing a fair amount of shots around the basket that they probably would tell you they should always make. So let's see how this squad handles this environment. It's going to be fun, but it will certainly be a heck of a test too.
Derek, last thing for you this afternoon, but I want you, and I'm serious, and I want you to have fun with this answer at the same time. I want a conversation that Derek Scott and Judge Casey Manning are having about watching the growth of Colin Murray-Boyles right now and what he is becoming, especially if you, sir, can share some of the judge's insights on some of the things that he sees. But maybe you're in a hotel lobby or, at your local Waffle House. What's that conversation like right now?
First of all, now you've made me just laugh thinking of Casey. If I could drag Casey into a Waffle House, that would be the news of the day, because that dude is a food snob. And as much as I would be very much an advocate of let's go to the Waffle House, I don't think I'd ever get my man in there in a million years. But besides that,
he's missing out. I'll call it. He's missing out. I love Waffle House.
If the conversation were to happen, I know, I believe me, when we talk about what Colin's doing, it's just that level of giddiness, because, I pointed out to Casey, I said, you kind of have to go back to your era, your playing era, in my mind, to find somebody who is as comfortable using the backboard as much as Colin does. I mean, if you think about all those field goals he had on Saturday against Vandy, I got to think. I really honestly meant to go back and chart this, but that time's not in my life. But I over 75% of those field goals had to be bank shots. That's crazy. Nobody does that anymore. Even when they should, they don't do it anymore. He's got a natural gift for that, man. He understands how to use the window. Nobody does that anymore. And it's little things like that you see and you appreciate. I got into the conversation a few weeks back with Lamont about how unbelievable his eye-hand coordination is and how it's weird talking about that in a basketball broadcast and not in a baseball broadcast. But Lamont backed up every word of it. He confirmed what I thought I saw, and that it really is out of the ordinary how good he is, his hands, how many deflections he gets and block shots, and then making catches on passes that aren't truly good passes, and then his court vision passing the ball out of the post. He's got a really unique toolkit, man, and that's where every day you watch him, you see something you didn't expect. That's kind of where it comes. I mean, sometimes you see him block a 7'5" guy's shot that you definitely didn't expect, but sometimes it's something much more minute. But you still see it, and if you see him enough, you've learned to really kind of be on the lookout for those sorts of things.
Good stuff. Safe travels. Appreciate you. Again, Derek and Casey on the call tomorrow night, 8 o'clock right here on the station, 8:30 tip time at Auburn, 8 o'clock airtime. Appreciate you, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay, guys.
That is Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, D. Scott Gamecocks, to follow along on Twitter. More on this ball club and what Lamont Paris thinks of tomorrow night as the postgame show continues. Welcome back in. Postgame Show continues on this Tuesday. Headlines of the day coming up for you. I'll try to pretend to be a lawyer in those headlines, but I'm not sure it's going to work.
How so? You going to try to take our money? Are you going to have a high hourly fee? I can make that joke. My sister's a lawyer.
Good.
Sweet lady.
I will try to. There's a couple of stories that are out there that involve lots of lawyers.
That's going to be fun.
That are headliney. So
Defense attorneys?
Get to that, sort of.
Okay.
Sort of.
I was going to ask, like, how juicy we get in here.
I don't know about how juicy it is. It's just part of the headlines. And we have numbers on the Super Bowl.
I heard they're good.
Sponsored by Taylor Swift.
Watched.
And the Eras Tour.
The official sponsor of the big game.
Shouldn't she have done that just for yucks?
Bought
Super Bowl
time. Yeah. That would have been hilarious.
Here's my concert. You can't get tickets for it, but it's out there.
Would you like to sell your soul for 2 tickets to the stop near you?
Dude, there's about 1 million people at least that would go, hells yes. How do I sign up? Do I have to go to that Crossroads place in Mississippi?
It's down there, near Cleveland, Mississippi. Yeah, you probably have to.
They would do it. There may be people that are blood related to me that would do it. Maybe. But thank goodness they've all seen her in concert, so maybe they wouldn't as much anymore.
Before the demand kind of got to an astronomical level.
My 2 oldest saw her here on the one of the arena tours. I don't know which one. I think they saw her twice actually. My 2 youngest saw her in the stadium in Atlanta. So after the demand was
slight venue change there.
Yeah.
Slight.
Yeah. I'd make an Eras joke, but I'm not going to. Let's get to cut 1 on today's list, please, sir, just to stay with Gamecock basketball. This is Coach Lamont Paris previewing the trip to Auburn.
A lot of challenges. I mean, they got a good team. They got a lot of different ways they can score. They're used to winning at their place. They're used to winning in general. They're just a good team. They got a good inside game. Obviously, they have some real good perimeter guys as well, and a couple of guys that are in between too. So they just know how to play. They know how to win. They know what their style is. They understand what their DNA is, and they play to that. So we just got to go there, and we'll practice tomorrow and some of the things that we want to get better at. That will prepare us for what they do specifically. But a large part of it will be us just being able to do the things that we want to be good at as well.
Someone's young child is there, and somebody's microphone was right near the rim.
I don't know if you heard it, but Colin Murray Boyles dunked again.
Speaking of, do we have time for that? Yeah, I do. All right. Cut number 5, please. Again, Colin Murray Boyles had mono, which I'm sure sucks. I've never had it, but I have friends that have. And it knocks you on your rear end for a long time.
Heard enough to not want it.
Amen, brother. But he was planning on, at least Lamont was planning on CMB being part of this thing from the get-go.
He was going to start. He was going to start for us. I mean, he had earned that. Yeah. He just had performed so well. He was doing so many things. Just a lot of it for young guys especially, it comes down to maybe if they're a specialist offensively, a guy really makes shots, a guy really uses the ball screen well. I think it's hard for guys to carve their way as young guys if it only is predicated upon being generally good at offense. He had really carved his way out for a bunch of other things that he did, just defensively, the physical impact that he can have on a game as a rebounder, as a ball screen defender. He's got tremendous, I keep talking about his hand-eye coordination as if this was baseball or golf, but he's got tremendous hand-eye coordination, and that serves him well in some of the things that he does too. But yeah, he had earned the right to call for him to be a starter before we started playing games.
And we heard about him being missed, and that was going to be part of it. And I think people back then, especially as you think back to a time before Christmas, be like, all right, well, I mean, what are we really missing? And yeah, some people around here especially knew, yeah, he was good in high school and things like that. But you don't really gain an appreciation for it at a larger level until you see it in action. And then all of a sudden you see it just take off.
Because you hear things all the time, especially from, teams and athletic departments, like, yeah, the kid's really, really good. I'm like, okay, I'm sure he's good. But, like, I hear this all the time from people that are ready to get, kids back from injury or, from an eligibility issue. You hear stuff all the time. And so I took it with a grain of salt. I was like, okay, he's probably really good. I mean, he took a year to play at a major prep school in Utah. I'm sure he can ball a little bit, so I'm sure it'll be good to have that body there. I just didn't think it'd be all SEC freshmen, maybe in the freshman of the year discussion in the conference type levels of good. And maybe, I don't know, top 3 or 4 players on this team levels of good.
Headlines of the day coming up. Drive around the SEC and a little bit more on what Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball had to say about Mark Kingston's club as the opening day approaches. All that in the final hour of the postgame show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to report to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways here this Tuesday afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. An accident on Blythewood Road at Wilson Boulevard has caused traffic backup here for about an hour or so, and a couple of obstructions on roadways. One, an object on the roadway is causing some mild traffic backup over an I-20 westbound at the Broad River Road exit 65. We also have another one on I-77 northbound before the Blythewood Road exit 27, and then one more accident to report here on Longtown Road over at Clemson Road.
Never gets old. Welcome in. Final hour of the postgame show coming at you. Headlines of the day alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We'll start with 5 Gamecock football players that have been invited to the NFL Combine. 321 overall, by the way, have been invited. Michigan is leading the way with 18. Just as a comparison, by the way, real quick before I tell you the 5 Gamecocks that made it, Georgia has 11. Michigan has 18.
They had a lot of good players.
They did.
They had the most, and I guess your more good players theory adds up here because I think Michigan won the national title.
Yeah. If you've never heard me say it, when it comes to college athletics, the best way to win, in my opinion, is to get more good players or more good players, depending on how you want to couch it. Right? That's either way.
It helps.
Both are true. More good players, more good players.
Fewer good players won't do you any good.
That does not work. It does not work.
No.
No.
That's how you lose games.
Yes. Yes. Spencer Rattler, Xavier Legette, Trey Knox, Nick Gargiulo, Marcellus Dial are the 5 Gamecocks that will be participating. We believe, I think Elijah and I for now believe that Xavier Legette will be the first Gamecock off the board. Rattler's going to get drafted. The other 3, I don't know. I feel like Dial has a nice opportunity late, maybe.
Yeah, Dial the most out of the rest.
Yeah,
I would say. The most chance.
And I can see Gargiulo making it, maybe not being drafted, but I can see him again. Savvy, smart, knows what he's doing out there. There's a lot of teams that like that, a lot of GMs that like that. And Trey Knox, is there a way to blend what he does with a big body in the NFL? I think the answer is yes. You and I were talking about him earlier. I don't know that he's the prototypical tight end. He is body-wise, but maybe not in terms of route running and pass catching. But at the same time, he was always a receiver in high school. And then because he's so big, they're like, well, son, you got to play tight end.
Happens a lot.
Yeah. And is he a victim of his own circumstance? I mean, that's sometimes not fair.
Being a little bit of a tweener can be.
Yeah, tweener. Again, I know it's not the same at all, but I always felt bad for Eric Norwood, a first-team All-American here at South Carolina, a hell of a SEC linebacker, and a game changer, man. There were times when he was a literal game changer, and there was just nowhere for him in the NFL. It's weird. It's like, man, he's good, and I think they knew it.
It's a testament to exactly how much different professional and college games are, and that's applicable to really any sport.
To me, I'm not trying to get out, and I'll get into other stories, but the ultimate tweener out of South Carolina, I feel like in my lifetime, has been Norwood, because I'm telling you, he will. I mean, again, you're first team All-American, you're good, man, in college, and he was, but it just didn't work. I don't know why, But anyway, so good luck to those guys. We'll have more on that coming up in the drive around the SEC. Earlier today, Disney and the College Football Playoff announced a 6-year, $7.8 billion extension that will make ESPN the network home of the 12-team College Football Playoff through 2032. The full completion of this is not done yet, and it will still need some time. They're trying to finalize what the format looks like now that the Pac-12 is going away, how much money gets shared amongst the group of five relative to the Power Five or now the Power Four. There's just a few other logistical things to get worked out. So until those things are done, I guess this is more like I don't know, one of those memorandums of understanding or some such. But Disney had right of first refusal. And if you're wondering, well, how much more is that than what they're currently getting? I'm glad you asked. This will more than double what they are currently making. They currently make $608 million per year. This will take them to better than $1.3 billion per year. So for those of you who wondered why they were doing this or couldn't fathom why they would do it or think that there's not enough competition or whatever else, this is your answer. I hope you now fully, I'm not even trying to, I hope you get it. They just more than doubled what they were making. That's why they did it. It is that simple. It might aggravate some of you, and I understand and appreciate that. It doesn't bother me. I'm good with this. But I understand that some of you don't like it. I get it. I do. I get it. Let me say again, they are going to more than double what they were making. And if this is all it takes, listen, we were doing a story earlier about them potentially going to 16. And they still can. So I wonder if there's a look in. Hey, Disney, you want to pay us even more money? But the reason it's only going to be Disney had right of first refusal. And so the leadership was clearly satisfied with the mouse writing them a giant check. And it also includes all those lightning lanes. You don't have to pay for them.
Even better. Even better. That might be why they signed it. That might have been the kicker. Is like, maybe we could get more money out of this, but I don't want to stand in line to go to Space Mountain, man. I really don't. And that's the kicker.
That's it. Because let me tell you, those things are gold. There was one time when we were down there, like right after the Toy Story ride, the first toy, not the newest one, but
the Buzz Lightyear.
Not the Buzz Lightyear, but I don't know if you've ridden the one that's like the shoot 'em up game in Hollywood Studios. So it's similar to Buzz Lightyear in that it's 3D and you ride around and shoot stuff. But it was brand new. And this is when they called it Fast Pass. And they were free, but you had to go to the ride once you got in the park and swipe your little attendance ticket. And then you got the requisite amount of Fast Passes for your party. Dude, I'm telling, and they were free. I am telling you right now. I know I'm doing the headlines, but I could have sold those things for $100 a pop. I could have gone, who wants them?
I have Fast Passes.
They were gone. They were gone. Like 3 minutes later, they were gone for the day. And this was at like 9:15.
It's amazing.
And they were gone for the day. And I could have held them up like scalpers outside the Super Bowl. Who wants it? Who's got it? So
You just would have walked out there raking cash.
Yeah. Now, again, my children would have and my wife would have beaten me up, but I didn't need that.
I guess that's where your head goes.
But if I told my wife, honey, I just made us $600, she might have been all right with it. Anyway, $7.8 billion, 6-year extension, 2032. The Mouse retains full broadcast rights to the college football playoff.
You want to know why I think we're going to go to 16 playoff teams too? I know we've touched on it, but you know what Mickey Mouse probably isn't thinking? I got enough money.
No.
I'm making enough.
No. Mickey's a good mouse that cares about people, but he's a capitalist.
And he's getting a little fatter.
Yeah, he's a capitalist.
And it'll never be enough.
No.
Moral of the story. It'll never be enough.
Speaking of never enough, the Super Bowl on Sunday night has not just set a record, kids. Not just set a record. It is now officially, in terms of scheduled broadcasts in the United States, the most watched program in television history. You heard me right. Not one thing can now eclipse what happened on Sunday night. The average was 123.7 million viewers across television and streaming. Last year was 115 million. Nielsen says that at least 202.4 million people watched some of the Super Bowl. It's not quite 2/3 of the population of the United States. but 202.4 million watched at least some. Last year, that number was 183.6, about a 10% jump. Elijah and I were looking at a story earlier. The only thing that we can see that this story had out that or that had in it that has been more watched as a percentage of the American population is the first moon landing in 1969. That's it.
That was kind of a big deal.
And back then, they estimate that roughly 150 million people watched that, and the population of the United States then was a shade over 200 million. So roughly 3/4 of the nation watched that. Again, this is not quite 2/3.
We'll probably not ever get that high of a percentage of the country to watch the same thing at the same time, right?
I don't know what. I don't know what. It would either have to be something incredibly historic like that, and I don't know what that is. Maybe going back to the moon, landing on Mars, or I hate to say it, but something just amazingly tragic.
Yeah, a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Would get people to tune in.
You know, other than that, I'm with you. I just and again, what's bigger than I don't know.
Because what's bigger at one scheduled time, than the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl, and there's still a lot of other people that were watching other things at that point in time. How do you get those people to do it all at once?
I don't know.
Or at least get that big of a share. I don't know if we'll ever get like moon landing level share of people watching the same thing at once, ever again. But I think we just about witnessed about what close enough could be.
I mean, I figure by the time we're actually going to go to Mars and land with humans, which is going to be really incredibly difficult to do. I mean, I don't know that maybe you'll still be here. I'm kind of thinking I might not. But maybe if America has 400 million people in it by then, are you going to get 300 million of them to watch it? Maybe you will. I don't know. Hell, by then, man, everybody's going to be all wearing little glasses that so you'll have to watch it.
Will we get the flying cars by then?
I'd rather have that.
Would be really cool.
Yeah.
The Jetsons made it.
We were supposed to have the Jetsons by now.
Yeah.
Isn't there something out there, by the way, that says what year they kind of like Hanna-Barbera thought the Jetsons would be?
I have not seen that.
I don't know if they ever said it on the show.
But somebody who created the show had an idea.
Well, I just think about 2001, and I'm like, man, we didn't even come close to that. And then the sequel was the sequel was 2010, and I'm like, well, we really didn't do that either.
Missed the mark on that.
Big time.
Or Back to the Future's idea.
Yeah. I love that movie.
Yeah. All of them.
I love they are good, but the first one, man, that changed. That changed
the original.
Yeah, that was a good. Real quick here, I don't know what's going to happen, and again, I'm not a lawyer. Today there was a hearing in Greenville, Tennessee, near Knoxville. Judge Clifton Corker had scheduled 4 hours for a hearing with the states of Tennessee and Virginia to try to stop the NCAA from enforcing name, image, likeness law or rules, rather. The hearing only took 90 minutes, and he said he would rule in short order. I don't know what that means. Like, is that Waffle House short order? Like, short order cook? Or does that mean like sometime by the end of the week? Again, the attorneys general of Tennessee and Virginia basically say that the NIL rules are arbitrary, illegal, and violate antitrust. And last week, when they had wanted a temporary restraining order, the judge did not grant that. But he did say he thinks you will win on the merits as it pertains to the Sherman antitrust laws. So, or the Sherman Act.
Yeah. He's calling a shot.
He did. And so now they're looking for, again, an injunction. So just basically say you don't let him enforce it. So we'll see. I don't know if he will or not. Again, I don't know. Not a lawyer.
I'll pretend to be one.
And real quick, in the same draft, Mitch Trubisky was drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Just want you all to know that today, Mitchell Trubisky was cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just something to think about. That's the headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. They're also having some fun with their Pro Swing location right next door to their offices in Chapin. Check them out for the latest in amazing golf simulation. and so much more. Check them out online, too, integratedmediainc.com. Home theater dreams brought to reality all the time with my good friends at Integrated Media. Talk some Carolina baseball on the other side of the break. Our good friend Aaron Fitt joined us earlier to preview the season. What did the D1 baseball guru have to say? You'll hear it as the postgame show continues. 19 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Beautiful day in the capital city after yesterday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Our good friend Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball joined us in the first hour today to preview the entire baseball season. All of that interview available for you at 1075thegame.com or anywhere you get our info on the podcast page. But we started Aaron off, and we'll play a portion of it here for you with the Gamecocks. But first, really, the perception of where the program is after making it back to the Supers last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a program that feels like is definitely continuing to head in the right direction. I mean, obviously, it's been a little while now since they've been to Omaha, and that's kind of the standard that they set there during the glory years, right? And it's been a decade, more than a decade now since they've been back. And so that's kind of obviously where they need to get. But last year was a very successful season. Anytime you host a regional, first of all, I think that's a great accomplishment, and then when you win a regional, even better. I mean, and after that, I mean, the postseason is a crapshoot, but they were very close to getting back, and I like the trajectory of the program. I think they've done a really good job finding their footing in the transfer market, which is such a huge part of the college game now, and they've really done a great job there. They get their freshmen and they develop, and they've had some stars come through that way. Obviously, Petrie being the prime example, but I just feel like they've really found their footing, and I do feel like it's not going to be long before they do get back to the World Series.
Cole Messina and Ethan Petrie on a lot of All-America lists to start the year. They finished the season on a lot of those last season, too, which is probably more important, production relative to projection, Aaron. But with Ethan Petrie coming on the way he did, and now as a sophomore, this team, and we had Mark on the show yesterday, and he was quick to say, hey, listen, we got some other guys in that lineup. But it seems to me pretty obvious that this Gamecock baseball team is going to be built around the bat of Ethan Petrie.
Yeah, Petrie and Messina, I mean, you're talking about two first-team preseason All-Americans, I mean, the guys who are number one at their respective positions in the whole country as far as we're concerned. And so that's a pretty good place to start your lineup when you got two guys who are the very best at their spots. I mean, we had Petrie as the number one outfielder in the country in our preseason player rankings. So he's obviously special. And, I continue to compare him to Chris Bryant. I don't know if that's fair or not, but that's who he reminds me of, just that athletic right-handed power hitter who runs better than you think and throws, and it's just really tooled up, controls the zone pretty well for a power hitter. I mean, I think there's one area where he could continue to improve, and I think he will now as a sophomore because he's going to be pitched pretty carefully, and so he's got to make sure he stays within himself, doesn't chase like so many of the great college stars over the years have been in that position, whether it's Chris Bryant, whether it's Anthony Rendon, Buster Posey, all these guys you look up, and as sophomores and juniors, they've got a ton of walks because everyone's pitching them so carefully, but they've managed to stay within themselves and not chase too much. And so that's kind of the key, I think, for a guy who establishes himself as a superstar so early is can you stay patient? Can you not get jumpy when you're getting pitched around a little bit? And I think it's going to be hard to pitch around him because they have so much firepower in this lineup. I mean, I still think this should be an elite offensive club.
And that's kind of where I was going to go next, and I don't want to make a comparison in terms of a player, but I look at Matt Olson with the Braves relative to Matt Olson with the Athletics when, he could pitch around him in Oakland. And he would chase a lot of stuff, too. In Atlanta, with the lineup the way it is, and again, I'm not trying to go apples to apples, but you just made the point, it's about surrounding him. How do you like what Carolina has coming back around him? Messina, obviously, we've already mentioned, but in terms of a 1 through 9, what you see with the returning guys plus what Mark has added through the portal, and as we know, what kind of hitting coach Monty Lee can be to help these guys develop further.
Yeah, Kingston talked a lot about last year about how he loved the way that the Texas A&M team 2 years ago was built, that Omaha club for Jim Schlossnagle, where they just drive you crazy. Like their games, A&M that year, the games were tough to watch because they were all 4.5 hours long because they're fouling off 100 pitches and they just would not quit. And that tenacity combined with the power that they had, I think was a formula that Kingston said, hey, this is a winning formula. And he wanted to implement that style of play last year, and they were very very successful at it. And, I think they're going to do the same thing this year. I mean, they did it in the fall. I mean, certainly when I was in there, it was just one mature at-bat after another. And Kingston said that was kind of the story of their fall, was just so many tough outs and guys that just would not quit. And so I think that's going to continue to be the case. And it helps when you've got older players to build around. I mean, we talked about a couple of them, but Gavin Castles, of course, and Parker Nolan, the 50-year guy from Vanderbilt, you plug him in there. Talmadge Lee Croy, is a proven SEC caliber hitter who's just a tough out, just really digs in there, and I think an underrated player, a fun player. You plug in some nice pieces in the portal. I know they were very excited about Blake Jackson in the fall. I have not heard much about how his spring preseason is gone, but that's a transfer from Charlotte that they thought could be like a table setter, an everyday center fielder. Maybe Kennedy Jones, if he can make the adjustment to SEC pitching from UNC Greensboro. He's certainly a physical and athletic guy that can hurt you. There's a lot of nice pieces here. I think Will Tippett may be the biggest key of all. The guys that they expect to step in at shortstop. I thought he looked great there defensively in the fall. The bat needs to take a step forward, and it looked like it was doing that in fall ball, and we'll see how that translates to the spring.
One more on the Gamecocks for you. We're talking to Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball. Do you want to get your take on what's going on around the conference and the state of South Carolina, too? Matt Williams comes in as pitching coach. There's a lot of arms to work with. Mark yesterday, unfortunately, Aaron, I tried, but he was not ready to tell us his weekend rotation yet. I think that's coming, but there are a lot of choices. We know injuries last year really hurt this pitching staff more than anything else, but if healthy, how do you rate them?
Yeah, I like the depth on the mound. I mean, that's kind of the standout thing, I think, is 12, 14, 15, 16 guys that can throw 93 or better. I mean, they have arm strength collectively, and that certainly stands out. Kind of the concern, I think, on paper heading into this thing is, do they have a true frontline guy? It seems like they got a lot of number 2, number 3 starter profile type guys. I think Eli Jones is a huge key, because that's the one guy that I think, I could see him taking that next step and being a solid, SEC Friday night guy. He's not going to be Paul Skeens, but he can go out there and compete. He's got experience. He's got plenty of stuff. I mean, he'll show you, 94, 95 with sink, and can spin the slider pretty well. So I think he's got enough ability there that he can maybe be that guy, that anchor that they can lean on. And then, we'll see if Matthew Becker's healthy or not. I know he had, it sounded like there's some kind of injury thing with him last week, I think. That's certainly a key piece, a left-hander that has experience, can really spin the breaking ball. And Rogan Kimball, I liked him a lot 2 years ago. He was at Notre Dame, and he looked great in the summer for me in the Cape Cod League and even in the fall ball before he got hurt. But coming back from TJ, that's the guy that they have high hopes for, I know. That is frontline stuff. It's just a matter of how long does it take a guy to get all the way back from Tommy John. Sometimes that can be a process that takes longer for some guys than others. Mm-hmm. But at his best, it's mid-90s, with really elite characteristics in that fastball. It's got that kind of that low release height that makes it kind of jump through the zone. And so I think that's the guy that has a chance to be pretty good. So obviously you got Chris Veach in the bullpen and lots of pieces around him. I love the depth of the bullpen.
Got about a minute and a half here, Aaron. So I'll go ahead and ask you about some of the other teams in the state. Obviously, talent-rich baseball state, but how do you project Clemson and Coastal Carolina, I guess, when it comes to the national stage? How legit are these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, they're both real contenders. Both hosted regionals last year, and we've got them ranked such that we probably expect them to be right in that mix again this year. In Clemson, I think we have number 10 in the preseason. Just a nice veteran club, pretty balanced, pretty athletic. It's not like blow you away pitching, but they've got enough guys there with experience that you really like. So Coastal Carolina, I just think that the firepower in the lineup is terrifying. Kind of like South Carolina. I think they're going to be an elite offensive club, multiple All-American caliber guys there with Caden Bodine and Derek Bender leading the way. And, we'll see how they come together on the mound, but they did a good job with the JUCO guys that they brought in. I think they're probably, certainly one of the teams to beat in the Sun Belt, which is a very good league. So, yeah, I think you've got 3 real regional host type teams in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, and Chad Holbrook's got a pretty good squad down at Charleston, doesn't he?
Yeah. He does, yeah. I just wrote them up the other day. I think it's a team that could surprise some people. It's a good league, the CAA this year. They're probably fourth in the preseason pecking order, but I like their club. I think they could be kind of that team lying in the weeds.
Real quick before we let you go, I do this to you every season and have for, 10 or 15 years, however long I've known you. Give me Aaron Fitt's sleeper team across the country, somebody we're not thinking of that can make some noise.
Really like Troy's club, a team I hated leaving out of the preseason top 25. Speaking of the Sun Belt, I think they're very interesting. I'll give you a deep sleeper, Kansas. Nobody never thinks about Kansas in baseball. But...
Good stuff. That's Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball. Drive around the SEC is next.
From the WIS Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you might be causing some delays on the roadways this Tuesday afternoon. We'll start in Irmo. An accident just recently reported on Bickley Road at Broad River Road. causing some traffic back up. Another one in Richland County, Blythewood Road at Wilson Boulevard. That one's been causing traffic to move pretty slowly here for the past hour and a half or so. In Columbia, an accident I-20 eastbound over at I-26 near exit 64. That one's recently been reported to be causing some delay, as well as another one here on I-20 westbound over at Clemson Road near exit 80, and one more on I-26 westbound at I-20 exit 107B.
And it is Drive Around the SEC time. We'll start with the latest, way too early top 25 from ESPN National College Football reporter Mark Schlabach. Remember, kids, there are, looking ahead now, 16 members of the Southeastern Conference. And as you might expect, the conference is well represented. Again, it's February. We get it. So don't read too much into this.
It's way too early, but trust me, it could have been earlier.
They could. Well, they've done one. He's even said it's the post-portal / signing days. Way too early, top 25. So some things have changed. I'm just going to give you SEC teams only. Georgia, number 1. Texas, number 4. Ole Miss, number 6. Missouri, number 7. Alabama, number 9. LSU, number 12. Oklahoma, number 14. Tennessee, number 16. Let me get down. There's only one more. Kentucky, right? Kentucky, number 23. Oh, no, A&M 25. So there you go. Basically half the league is in the top 25.
Including 3 staples of the conference, Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma.
Yep. In his own version of, like, also receiving votes, there were no other Southeastern Conference teams. Which sounds about right.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. I would think those that are on the outside closest to looking in, probably Auburn and Carolina, in terms of having a chance.
And that'd be on the more optimistic side of really both. Yeah.
Yeah, and my one question, I'm
still an Auburn skeptic.
I get it, and you should be. I know they got players. They got some players. Can they put it together? I think Hugh is going to have a better second year. Is this the year that we have to stop questioning how good Missouri can be, or can we not get over that hump?
I think there should be a fair amount of skepticism still going into it. We'll see. You have to follow it up because you're not sneaking up on anybody anymore. You got to follow it up. And if they're a top 10 team next year, then I will officially hand it to them. You are a top, you are a mainstay top of the SEC.
Basketball tonight across the conference. 3 games, A&M at Vandy. A&M will likely win that one. But then 2 very interesting games.
Putting it.
2 very interesting ones. LSU travels to Florida. Again, Florida playing well. Got a nice, dominant victory over Auburn the other day. Don't want to sleep on LSU, though, right? Again, LSU can play. They can get up and down the floor.
Yeah.
I expect Florida to win.
Matt McMahon teams always play fast. Fun Florida fact, there is not a Power 5 team in the country that has their opponents miss a higher percentage of their dunks than Florida. They got a lot of bigs, and they are really good at protecting the rim. The opponents only finish successfully dunks against Florida 74% of the time.
Wow.
So 1 out of every 4 I can't speak today. 1 out of every 4 dunk attempts against Florida is not successful.
Interesting.
Fun rim protection stat there.
Interesting.
Gators can do that pretty well.
Interesting. And the other game tonight is Mississippi at Kentucky. Kentucky's lost 3 straight at home for the first time. Did you tell me, well, at least at Rupp, for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm. In the history of Rupp Arena.
Which is telling. Ole Miss is good. Kentucky is reeling right now. You and I already said in like a nice way that maybe at the end of the year, it's just time for Cal. Like, again, some things in life run their course. I don't know. But if Chris Beard's crew finds a way to get up to Rupp and do it again tonight, I mean, all of a sudden Kentucky might be sliding toward the bubble.
Yeah. And I think their win against North Carolina is doing so much heavy lifting right now.
Yeah.
In terms of their NCAA tournament status. If they didn't win that game back in December, they are on the bubble as we speak. Yeah. They are really flirting with, we're talking 7-8 seed territory here, which to have the amount of talent on that team, because Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd are probably going to be top 10 picks, and you still have a couple of older players like Trey Mitchell and Antonio Reeves, who's one of the best scorers in the conference, for that to be a 7-9 seed in the NCAA tournament, that itself is either a fireable offense or a felony, and I'll let you pick which it is.
I'm often a believer in the distinction between a team and a collection of talent, and I'm just starting to begin to think that once again, because of the amount of freshmen that he's got and guys that are probably halfway focused on Kentucky and halfway focused on personal individual development, that this is now leaning more towards a collection of talent.
Offensively, I'd say they are a really good team. But defensively, you throw a ball screen at them, and Jay, you mean you can run a pick and roll, and we're going to get at least half a point per possession against them. That's how bad their ball screen defense has been. Gonzaga just did that all
day
game, and they knew what was coming, and they couldn't stop it all game long. If they could just guard a ball screen throughout the course of a game and encourage a team to actually run more of an offense, then maybe they could be top 100 in defensive efficiency. But the fact that they can't, and the book is out on how poor they are at guarding any of that on the perimeter, it's a pretty embarrassing way for them to go out, considering just how much offensive firepower that exists there. But part of guarding ball screens, Jay, is communication and being a team and being able to play those really well. So I would say you leaning half collection of individuals holds up really, really well on the defensive side of the floor.
It just when I watch them, that's what I see. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm seeing more and more each week. There's a reason they're losing, and I don't think it's because they have talent.
Oh yeah, plenty of it. Yeah. In Ole Miss tonight, Moussa Cisse, their starting center, the bulkier one, the guy who is just absolutely shredded, sets really good screens.
Right.
They hit tough shots,
as
we saw here.
I'm anxious to watch this one. I think that could be. I think Ole Miss can win this game. I expect Kentucky to win. I expect Kentucky to win every home game they play.
You and I are anxious to watch this game. Lexington, Kentucky is anxious.
Yeah, period.
Just in general.
Before we hit the break, let me talk to Charles, who's been waiting for a few minutes. Hey, Charles, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing well. How are y'all?
Good, man.
Real quick, I'll make this as brief as possible. I'm going to add on 2 things before the point of why I called in. First off, I just wanted to voice, this is my ADHD while I was on hold. I have to say these things. First off, right out the gate, I wanted y'all to know, appreciate what y'all do and respect the job that y'all do, because putting yourself out there with knowing all the arrows, the criticisms, because anytime it's like public speaking on steroids. That's what y'all do for a career. And, whether I agree or disagree with any kind of personality that puts themselves out like that, respect. So
thank you.
Thank y'all. Y'all are good at what you do, and I appreciate it. Secondly, real quick, Jay, I know you're more of a fish guy, but are you going to the residency at the Sphere for Forever Dead?
No, I didn't know about that one.
No. Practically all of May and all of June and a little bit into July, Dead & Company have a residency at the Sphere.
Oh, I did. You know what? I did know that. Yeah, with Bob. Yeah, I did know that. And I wouldn't say I'm more of a Fish guy. I love the Grateful Dead, man. I mean, it's just, Fish is just kind of overtaken since, 1995 for me personally. But
Fair
No,
enough. I was born in the wrong generation,
Yeah,
so
no, I hear
I was
you.
born
I
in the
hear
wrong decade, so I missed Jerry. But anyways,
Yeah.
my point of calling in regarding the most watched events,
Right.
and thinking back to the moon landing. The thing is now we have to continue to develop out how we actually recognize those numbers. For example, and I know this sounds it is morbid. Thinking back to 9/11.
Yeah.
How many people were actually live tuning in and watching on any number of platform or channels? And that was even before people could just watch on the internet on some live stream, right?
Yeah. Hey,
So
Charles, hold that thought. I want to come back to you. I got to hit a break here. I want to come back to that. And speaking of John Calipari, a big anniversary for him that we want to let you hear. We'll be right back. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show on this Tuesday. Reminder, as soon as we're done here, 11 minutes from now, give or take, Coach Don Staley and Brad Muller, special edition, Tuesday night, Carolina calls. Then tomorrow night, Carolina men's basketball, 8 o'clock. And Thursday night, Coach Paris and Derek, Carolina calls, also at 6 at Liberty down there.
Just that way. That way.
Right down there.
Yeah.
Right there. Are Brad, I should know this, are Brad and Dawn also at Liberty?
Yes.
Okay. You, as far as you know?
Yeah, it's my knowledge.
Okay.
I have not been told differently. So.
Okay. I want to let Charles finish his thought on how we measure who's watching television because, again, the Super Bowl set a record Sunday night as the most watched, regularly scheduled broadcast in the history of American television. But he had some good points. Hey, Charles, I'll let you finish that up, bud.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you much. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of money in being able to actually provide objective data to viewership. And going forward, it's going to become more and more complicated for different broadcasters or whomever could profit from it. Mm-hmm. And, it's one thing to air it on a channel, streaming platform, but even then, people are going to watch it any event that gets the most amount of eyes any way they can. And so there's an opportunity for these different entities, whoever can benefit the best, to calculate the opportunity there. I mean, I'm just very interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, I
forward.
think it's fascinating, man. And thank you again for what you said about us. We appreciate that. And I'm glad you're a jam band guy, too. Nielsen is working with Amazon and others on how to figure out more about streaming specificity in terms of who's streaming. You'd figure that'd be easier than even like measuring over-the-air broadcasting, but apparently there's still some things to work out. And for the first time this year, I think they were able to better incorporate how many people are at sports bars and such, which in and of itself can be very difficult. I mean, I don't care. I'm not going to name a sports bar, but think of your favorite sports bar when it's crowded. Then think of it at the Super Bowl, whether you've been there or not. Is the bartender or the restaurant manager going, all right, and then sending it off? We had 312 in here tonight, Like, no, so you're right. It is going to be, but I think as more and more people are streaming, I would think it would be a lot easier ultimately to begin to count by just knowing who clicked on the stream, right?
That's the easiest way of doing it.
Ultimately. But again, as we've said too, there are still tens of millions of Americans that only get television over the air. So there's something to think about. Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen Dead and Company. John Mayer is a wizard on the guitar, but I just can't.
Awesome.
I just can't do him with Bobby and the guys.
Saw it once at Bonnaroo a few years back. It was
listen. He's
so good.
He's very good, but he became a Grateful Dead fan like 10 years ago, and that's hard for me as somebody who became a Grateful Dead fan 40 years ago.
A lot longer.
That's all. Anniversary today, a big one. Let's play the clip, then we'll reminisce.
Say that. Well, John Chaney and John Calipari shook hands after the game on the court, but the Temple coach spotted Calipari giving officials some grief near the locker room after the game. Calipari was on the Zebras throughout the game, but his post-game conversation with the officials set Chaney off.
And you send your kids out there pushing and shoving. The guys did a hell of a job. You had the best officiating you could ever get here, and for you to ride them, I want to be a part of that. I just got my ass blasted for giving them hell down in West Virginia, and here you get a hell of a job right here today. Good job. 3 class guys, and you pick them out here and single them out. You can't get that. You got to never threaten the guys. Shut up, guys. You can't never threaten the guys. I'm killing you. You remember that. When I see you, I'm going to kick your ass. Kick your ass.
That was 30 years ago today A very young UMass head coach named John Calipari making a name for himself, trying to build a team that would ultimately get its Final Four trip taken off the board.
Well, I'm sure that's the only time that'll ever happen to John Calipari. I'm sure he learned his lesson.
Except
wait.
it didn't happen that way. And the great John Chaney, the legendary Temple coach, Philly through and through, someone that I know Dawn Staley absolutely adores. I remember seeing that later that night, and even though it was on tape, if you will, being frightened. Because like that could have been bad. It could have been bad.
Oh, he for those who haven't seen the video, he does charge the post.
Yeah.
He approaches it. He was about it.
Yeah. Thanks as always to Aaron Fitt for joining us, Derek Scott as well, the voice of the Gamecocks. For Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. See you tomorrow.